This is about whether those entrusted with power, especially at the highest levels of law enforcement, can be trusted to speak truthfully to Congress and uphold the law, or whether they are allowed to bend the rules to protect political interests.
My comments today about FBI chiefs testifying honestly and not lying to Congress are particularly relevant in light of your opening statement. Let me start with the basic fact behind all of this, that the current FBI director pled the fifth in the matter where he ended up providing grand jury testimony. We've never had an FBI director come through this committee who had pled the fifth before. As you know, when you plead the fifth, to do it honestly, you have to have a good faith belief that your testimony would subject you to criminal liability, which meant if Patel was being honest, he had a good faith belief that his testimony would subject him to criminal liability. As that went forward, he ended up getting immunity from the government in order to testify. If this were a court, a civil court, a judge would allow an adverse inference to be drawn against the witness who had asserted the fifth. In Patel's proceedings, we were never even allowed to get to the bottom of the grand jury testimony. Why he pled the fifth, what he said, all of that was papered over as he went through this committee to confirmation. So for obvious reasons, I pursued that question, just as you would, Chairman, if the shoe were on the other foot. And I believe that Patel lied to us in the committee. He said that he couldn't share his grand jury testimony, and I'm quoting him here, because there's a court order on that case, he said. He said again, I can't go into court orders granted by the DC District Chief Judge. And then when I pressed him further, he challenged me saying, you want me to violate a court order? He then went on to say to Senator Booker that his grand jury testimony has been sealed by the Department of Justice, and I'm not allowed to discuss it here. Well, as it turns out, none of that was true. All of that was false. And we know that because the DC District Chief Judge, who he mentioned in his false statement to this committee, said, and I'm quoting the judge, July 2025, Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 6E allows witnesses like Patel to divulge the contents of their testimony, meaning that nothing was preventing him from doing so before the committee, unquote. So it sure looks like he lied about that. So in his recent testimony, I asked him again. And now he offered the committee a new and different lie, which is that he had released the transcript already. He said, first of all, I'd love my grand jury testimony to be released. I want it made public. And then he said, I wanted the transcript released, and I will get it to you, sir, to me. I wanted the transcript released, and I will get you the transcript. He said to me, we can confirm that pursuant to my action, that grand jury testimony has been released, the transcript. He said the transcript has been released publicly. He told Senator Booker, well, I don't have the grand jury transcript. That's why I released it. So, as it turns out, no transcript was released. He was making up that lie, probably to get away from having to answer our questions. But now we have an FBI director who first lied in committee about a non-existent court order and had that lie exploded by the actual judge who he claimed had him under court order, and then lied in committee about having released a transcript that we all know has not been released. I think on that state of facts, we're entitled to get the transcript that he says he wants us to have, that he says he released publicly, and that the judge has confirmed is not under any court order of protection. So, Mr. Chairman, I look forward to working with you. I know you have a strong interest in FBI chiefs testifying honestly in this committee and not lying to Congress to try to get to the bottom of what is going on, because those seem like two pretty flagrant and obviously provable lies. And we'll follow up for further assistance to get to the bottom of this. But I don't think it's asking too much to ask the committee's support, to ask Director Patel to do what he says he has already done, which is to release the grand jury transcript of his testimony and provide it to us. Thank you.
What Senator Whitehouse is highlighting here goes to the very heart of accountability and the integrity of our justice system. At first glance, it might seem like a procedural dispute over testimony and transcripts, but this is far more than that. Kash Patel's actions, as Whitehouse lays out, are not just bureaucratic missteps, they represent a troubling pattern. We've never seen an FBI director come before the Senate Judiciary Committee having previously invoked the Fifth Amendment in such a context. Invoking the Fifth isn't casual. It signals that a person genuinely believes that answering questions could expose them to criminal liability. And yet, Patel was granted immunity, meaning that legally he had the ability to testify without fear of prosecution. So why is this important? Because what we're seeing is a deliberate effort to mislead the committee. When Patel told the senators that he could not share his grand jury testimony due to a court order, he claimed that he was bound by a legal restriction that simply didn't exist. The D.C. District Chief Judge later clarified that federal rules actually allow witnesses to disclose this information. The court's explicit confirmation makes it clear that Patel's claim was false. Then, in a second round of testimony, Patel doubled down with a new story that the grand jury transcript had already been released. Again, this was demonstrably false. This pattern of misleading statements is more than frustrating. It undermines the very mechanisms Congress relies on to perform its oversight functions. Senators aren't asking for special treatment, they're asking for transparency so they can do their job of ensuring that law enforcement acts within the law and not under political pressure. The broader lesson here is about the fragility of democratic institutions. When top officials in the FBI or Department of Justice start lying or bending the rules, it erodes public trust and opens the door to misuse of power. Citizens expect that these agencies operate independently, without political interference, and that they are accountable to Congress. Whitehouse's insistence on getting the actual transcript isn't just a technical request, it's a defense of that accountability. This episode also illustrates a larger principle about checks and balances. It's a reminder that no one, regardless of title or position, should be above scrutiny. Congress has the responsibility to hold officials accountable. When a witness lies under oath, it's not merely an inconvenience. It's a threat to the rule of law and to democratic norms. For viewers, the takeaway is clear. Democracy requires vigilance. We cannot accept officials evading questions, making false claims, or obstructing oversight without consequence. As citizens, it's essential to support institutions that demand transparency and integrity, and to hold accountable those who put personal or political interests above the law. The call to action is straightforward. Follow these proceedings closely. Demand accountability from elected officials and law enforcement leaders alike. Engage in civic life, ask questions, and insist on transparency from those in power. Because democracy is not self-sustaining, it is protected by an informed, active public that refuses to let deception become the norm. This is why Senator Whitehouse's insistence on getting Kash Patel to provide the grand jury transcript matters so much. It's about preserving the integrity of our justice system, ensuring that oversight is meaningful, and preventing the politicization of our federal institutions. These are not abstract concerns. They are the pillars of a functioning democracy, and they affect every American.